Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi tayyibin at-tahirin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So I welcome you all to this two-session course on the topic of losing identity. So before I begin, I'm going to just mention some points regarding what we are going to do in this course and how we are going to conduct it. So uh, this course is divided into two sessions, and today would be the first session where we would look at some of the things pertaining to this idea of identity and how it functions and the process. So today's discussion is going to be analytical in the sense that we're going to analyze different aspects of this question. And my second session, inshallah, which is next week, same time, same day, inshallah, we'll look at a very practical side of this discussion. So although the title sounds a bit negative in the sense that it's talking about losing identity, but the entire discussion that we have is in fact it's a discussion about strengthening our identity, and there's a lot of there are a lot of practical points that we can work upon. So how we are going to conduct our discussion is that I'm going to present what I have to present today. So you can see these slides and there'll be a discussion. If there are any questions, you can stop me in the sense that you can type it in the chat box. So I'll keep an eye on the chat box. So if there's anything, what I'm speaking is not clear, then you can stop me by typing. And inshallah, I'll leave around close to 20 minutes towards the end, 15 to 20 minutes towards the end for any questions that you may have. Okay, so with this brief introduction, we are ready to go. So you can see the title of the course on the screen. It says Losing Identity. What are we going to discuss? We're going to discuss, so this is the theme of our discussion, the general theme, our ideology and actions as believers and servants of Allah. The title might not be very clear, so basically I'm going to open it up and we're going to explain what all this means. Okay, so let me begin by saying this, that we live in a very challenging world today. So the first thing that I would really would like to emphasize here is that there's a lot of challenges that we face in today's world. So you can call it whatever you like. So we call it today's world. We call it the modern world, the Western world, the Western civilization. Especially, of course, I don't know which countries exactly you come from, but I'm assuming that a lot of you are based in the Western countries, as they're referred to, which is the center and the seat of this modern world. And of course, it's a phenomenon that's global today. So most cosmopolitan centers around the world, even in the Eastern countries, cannot escape the influence of the modern world. So it's a discussion that's relevant and important for all of us. So what does this modern world look like? So you see, it's when you live in today's world, you're surrounded by different ideas, thoughts, ideologies, modes of thought. There are different opinions. Everyone everywhere you go, from social media to your newspapers to television, there's so much going on. You're thrown at with so many ideas that now it becomes slightly difficult to even analyze and understand that what's actually happening. In addition to being surrounded by a lot of ideas and ideologies and ways of thinking, you will live in a world that promotes and invites us to a certain way of life. And the society in which you live has a certain conditions. Okay, so whichever country you might belong to, if you look at your country, your society where you live, it has a different factors that are influencing it, and people are living it in a certain manner. So for us as Muslims and followers of the faith of Islam, it's important to think about this, that what do these things mean for me and my people? Because It's very important to know and realize this, that things around me, especially my society or the dominant trends in my society, they are going to affect me. It's not something that I can easily escape. And this is a very important point, that if I'm not careful and if I don't have a good understanding of the world around me, then it can lead to a set of problems and issues for me. So what happens is, so let me take you to the next slide. What happens is that sometimes, because of not understanding what's going on around them, some people live a very confused life. It's the life can become very confusing. One day you're talking about a certain thing, the next day you're doing something else, the third day you're doing completely opposite. When you go to school, you hear something. When you come to your community centers, you hear the opposite. It's people are torn apart. And all these questions come, and especially for the youth and children. So if you have young children in your family, if you have children, your own children or siblings around you, believe me, you have no idea what kind of identity crisis they can go through. Why? Because they don't understand what's going on. Sometimes they'll hear something in the outside society, but when they come to their centers, the Islamic centers, they hear the opposite. They get confused. They don't know where we are headed. And this brings us to a problem that is identified today as identity crisis. And I'm going to come to this point of what do I mean by identity crisis. So, this is an important question that we ask ourselves today as individuals, as family members, and even going further as community members, because we have responsibility with respect to our own selves, with respect to our families, and add to that the community and society at large. So, the question is this: how do I safely maneuver my way through all this? And also, how can I help others in this journey? And if things go beyond a certain limit, now it's not just about identity crisis, it's about complete identity loss. So, what happens is that, as I mentioned, some people live lives of confusion. They are wavering, they're going one side or the other side, but some people are shaken to the very core of their existence. They get carried away, they go with the flow. The society, like a stream of water flowing with force, takes them. And the question is it taking us in the right direction? Is it matching with my goal in life? Is it matching with my duty as a Muslim? And all of this is something that we will have to understand and manage in today's world. So what we're going to do today is trying to understand why does it happen. And again, I won't mention specific examples, but I'm sure you must have seen these things happening around you. From a certain family, a good family, one of their children now has gone completely off track. And the examples can be many. Sometimes it's an ideological doubt. And by the way, in today's world, even from within the Shia circles, you might face these doubts about different things, from existence of God to the wilayat of the Ahlul Bayt to tawassul. All these things are there, and people get affected. So what we want to do is we want to understand this process of why this happens, and trying to, inshallah, will at the end of this discussion, we hope that we'll be able to appreciate more that how this process happens and how people can be shaken to the very core of their existence and end up in a state where they completely lose their identity. They don't know who they are. They don't know why they came in this world in the first place. And then you tend to get carried away with the flow. So, uh, in order to understand what happens to individuals, what we are going to do is very briefly, again, there's a lot of detail to this discussion, but I'm really, really like scared to go into technical details that might be a bit dry to discuss. But believe me, some of these things are extremely important. They can change our view about a lot of things if we understand how human societies function. Because you live in a society, and that society, whether you like it or not, is going to have an impact on you. So we need to have at least some clarity of what's going to happen. But as I've written, you can see on the screen that it's a very, very complicated and complex process. So, how humans function both as individuals and societies is a very, very complex and complicated thing to decipher and to understand. And you can see on the screen, sometimes we find mathematics to be very complicated, all the formulas and different equations and different things to handle. Believe me, how societies function, and even leave aside the society, even how individuals function, is a very, very complex matter, especially if you want to view this whole story from an Islamic perspective. So, according to Islamic teachings, human being is a very, very, very complex and deep creature of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has so many different aspects, dimensions, faculties, facets to him that it's mind boggling, like really. And we have hardly uncovered any secrets about a human life, human soul. So I want to just refer to here. I'm not going to read it. Inshallah, the slides should be shared later. So this is a piece of poetry attributed to Amirul Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. So in this piece of poetry, it's in Arabic, he's trying to tell us that, look, human being means you and me. So he's speaking to you and me. He's saying that, look, don't think you are just this flesh and blood. You're just this material aspect of your existence. You eat, you sleep, you enjoy, and that's it. No, that's not the case. So he says, so it's very beautiful. I'm just going to quickly read parts of it. So he says, da'uka fik wa la tash'ur. O human being, your disease and your problem is from within yourself. It's inside you. Wada'uka mink wa ma tandur. And the solution to your problem also is within you. It's inside you. Don't look for solutions outside. Then he says, وَتَحْسَبُ أَنَّكَ جِرْمٌ صَغِيرٌ. You think that you are a worthless piece of body, just this material aspect of your existence. While that's not the case. وَفِي كَنْتَوَ الْعَالَمُ الْأَكْبَرُ. Inside you, there is a great universe. There's a great world inside your own wujud, your own soul. And again, this discussion is very, very, very long. I mean, if we had a time and opportunity, we could speak for many, many hours on this. So Quran talks about the soul, the heart, the mind, the intellect, the desires, the faculty of anger we have, the fitrat that we have, free will, different akhlaqi qualities that are there, different internal states that we go through. Sometimes we are happy, sometimes we are sad, sometimes we are laughing, sometimes we are crying. Human being is very, very strange and a complex being. And now you take that to social level, it becomes a completely different ballgame. So what we want to do right now today is that we are going to analyze these things in depth. So let's begin our journey of understanding human societies. And again, as I said, that you might wonder that why are we discussing this? Why? Because let us understand how societies function. Then let us apply that to the modern world today and see how it's functioning today. And that will tell us how it's impacting us subconsciously. And I'm going to show this, that a lot of the effect that an individual human being takes from the society, a lot of it is very, very subconscious. You won't even realize. Sometimes our attitudes, the way we think, the way we perceive things, the goals we set, they can be affected by our society. Again, both positively and negatively. It's both ways. It works both ways. So if we are living in a society that doesn't match the goals of that society, don't match our goals, we need to be extra careful. If you live in a society where the larger society is going in the direction that you are going, you have an advantage. I mean, you go with the flow, and that flow is going to help you. So we want to uncover and decipher this. So uh, I'm trying to very briefly explain this framework for understanding societies. And again, I mentioned this, that if I'm not making sense, if there's any questions that you would like to ask, if there's any comment you want to make whilst I'm speaking, you can do that. You can go to this on top left. You can see this option called attendee chat. You can post your messages there if there's anything that's not clear. And of course, towards the end, 20 minutes, I'll leave time for Q&A, inshallah. So I hope all of you are with me, all of you are ready. So I'm beginning my next portion of my discussion. Of course, this COVID situation around the world has transferred a lot of the activities we do to online, especially Islamic lectures, mosque programs. And it's a really unfortunate situation, even in terms of the pandemic, how it's going, especially places like India and some other places, they're really, really going through a difficult time. And we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He lifts and relieves us of this difficulty. And inshallah, soon everybody can go back to work. They can have a stable means of earning. And inshallah, we also go back to those live programs that we have in our centers, that one-on-one physical interaction with the believers, with the mu'mineen, is definitely something that cannot be interchanged for anything else. Inshallah, we pray that. Okay, but for now, we don't want to miss the opportunity of gaining knowledge online, so we try and do whatever we can. Okay, so let me continue. I didn't see any comments in the chat box, so it can either mean that everything is fine and going well, or it can also mean that it's like I've lost everyone. Inshallah, I hope that it's the first thing, that everyone is with me. So let's begin our journey. So I'm going to divide how societies function into 4 parts. So please pay careful attention, because this framework that I'm going to set up right now, and I'm going to give examples to make it tangible, is something which we are going to use throughout. And inshallah, I hope that it will turn out to be useful. So let me begin. Human societies are like trees, and every tree has roots, right? So a tree can function, can grow, can give fruits, can give benefit to us only if it has strong roots. There's slight in the presentation, some of the text is a bit overlap. Excuse me for that, because of the font setting, but I'll read these things for you. So if you want to understand human societies, the best way, or the best example to imagine, is to imagine it like a tree. So what are the roots of this tree of society? The roots are the worldview of the people of that society. And again, the Holy Quran gives this example. So one of the beauties of the Quran is that it likes to give us examples. So I'll quickly read this. This is Surah Ibrahim, verse number 24. So it says, Alam tara kayfa daraballahu mathala. Have you not regarded how Allah has drawn a parable, how Allah has given an example? So it says, Mathalan kalimatan tayyiba ka shajaratin tayyiba. A good thing. And now, this is the beauty of the Quran. You can apply it to anything. A good thing might mean a good person, a good society, a good civilization, a good community, a good family. You can apply it to anything. So the Holy Quran is telling us that a good thing, and in our case, we're going to apply it to the society. A good society is like a shajaratin tayyiba, is like a good tree. Asluha thabit, its roots are steady and firm. وَفَرْءُهَا فِي السَّمَاءِ. Its roots are very, very strong. It's well rooted, and it's going towards the sky. It's producing benefit result. Its branches are facing the sky. It's growing. So in any society, the roots of that society is the worldview of those people. And what do I mean by worldview? You can see I've written it at the bottom. Worldview is your belief about what is real and what is not real. And believe me, every human being has a worldview. Human being has a set of beliefs, starting from existence of God. So if you believe God exists, you have a certain worldview. If you believe God does not exist, you have another worldview. Of course, I'm not saying that everyone is okay to believe in whatever they like. No. Logically, we say that you believe in what is real. If God exists, then it's logical for me to believe in that reality. If God has sent prophets for our guidance, then it's logical for me to believe in that reality. So, all human beings and all societies, they have a worldview. But the problem is that it's not seen. It's not written on people's forehead what they believe. Like the roots of the tree. You see the tree, you don't see the roots. But everything the tree has is sourced from the roots. That's why this is such a good example. So, society, so you live in a society, you live with many people around you, and they have a set of beliefs, but you can't easily see it. Why? Because it's not written on their foreheads. How do you understand what their beliefs are? We'll find out from the other elements that are there in that society. So, the first part in any society are the beliefs that are there in that society. From these beliefs are the values that are formed in this society. And this is a very important, we are going step by step. So we started from bottom, which are the roots. Based on these roots, you have the values in that society. So what are values? Values is, so worldview is what's in your intellect, what you think is there and is not there. Does God exist? Does God not exist? Values are what do you think is good and bad? Your perception of morality, your liking of the heart. If you love something, if you're attached to something positively, that's a positive value in your life. If you see a society that considers something important, considers something good and praiseworthy, and they're emotionally attached to it, that's the positive value in that society. If you see a society rejecting a certain thing and hating it and detesting it and considering it bad, it's a negative value in that society. And every society has a set of values. It's impossible that a human society doesn't have values. And I'm going to give examples to make it clear. Well, let me give you an example that all of us, or at least all of you who are my audience, are, you can see it today. So in today's modern world, this idea, so there was a time that homosexuality, of course I'm giving an example which is very contemporary, might be a bit controversial. I'm not passing any judgment about this topic and what's Islamic view on that. That's a separate discussion. I'm giving an example. So until recently, maybe 30, 40 years ago, in the modern world, this thing was an anti-value. People would not look at it in a positive way. They would consider it, even according to the traditional Christianity and the religious people, this act is considered a sin. Muslims definitely believe that it's an act of disobedience and sin. But you see that in last 30 years, this value has changed. So from being an anti-value for a variety of reasons, and I'm going to briefly talk about that how do values change? But we can see this change that in last 30, 40 years, it's taken a U-turn, a 180-degree turn, and something that was an anti-value has become a value. And again, examples can be many of how these values change, but every society, the society in which you live, is definitely founded on values. And values are those things that people consider as good or bad, their attachments to actions of moral value. So that's the second part of a society. So be with me. So I'm building this. So the base and the foundation is your worldview, how you perceive the world. Based on that, you have your values, what you like and what you do not like, and it's very closely connected, right? If you view the world in a certain way, your values change. If you change your worldview, your set of values and your value system is going to change. And now, based on these values, are the social systems that are used to run that society. So, and this is that part that you can feel and it's tangible. So, what are the social systems? For example, political system of a society is a very, very important social system. The economic system, the system of education, the legal system, and you can add to the list. These are just examples. This is not an exhaustive list. These are just examples of some of the social systems, of course, the most important of them that we have in the society. So, values heavily affect social systems in any given society. And again, I'm keeping it very brief for both reasons that I have little time, and again, I don't want to bore you or make it very dry. I hope it is not, inshallah. Okay, so let's move on. So let me give you example, the same example which I gave. So as I mentioned, that this homosexuality has changed from being an anti-value or a negative value to something that's given a lot of importance and value today. You might wonder that, okay, so what? What I'm trying to say is that when values change, social systems also change. So, worldview, values, social systems, they're built on each other. So, what happens is that, and you have seen this happening in this case. So, they legally, for example, this act has been first decriminalized. So, firstly, it was considered a sin and a crime. Even in all the Western societies, there was a time, of course, it was different for different countries, but at least I can say 100, years ago, legally, the legal system wouldn't support this act. Same sex marriages were not, they didn't have any legal backing. There's no inheritance between couples married in this manner. But because the values in the society have changed, the legal systems falls in place. There's pressure is built on the legal system, and the laws change in order to align itself with the change in the values. Inshallah, I'm going to give more examples today. I wanted to give a very relevant example that we have today, that how these social changes happen. I'm going to give more simpler examples in a short while. So the fourth and the last part that you have in a society, and then after this I'm going to give a few examples, and inshallah slowly I'll wrap up my discussion. I don't want to prolong it too much. The last and the fourth part, and a very, very important one in any society, is the attractions of that society. Especially those societies and those civilizations which are strong and dominant. And we can say this today, right? That in today's world, the modern civilization or the Western civilization, you can name it whatever you want. The name is not important. The current civilization in which we live is the dominant civilization. And then it produces a lot of products that attract us towards that civilization. So societies act like magnets. So you can see in the picture, right? That a society is like a magnet, especially those societies which are the dominant ones around the world. So if you live in a strong and a dominant society, you will be surrounded by a lot of products and attractions of that society and civilization that are going to tell you every single day, come become like me. It's like a magnet pole. Okay. So let me summarize my framework, which I've tried to build in these last 15-20 minutes. And that is that, look, this is how society functions. It has 4 elements to it, and each of these are linked to each other. The first element is worldview, and that is your perception of what is real and what is not real. Do you believe that God is real or God is not real? Do you believe religion is real or religion is not real? Do you believe prophets are real or prophets are not real? Do you believe is there life after death, or you don't believe life after death? All of these elements and answers to these questions, they form your worldview. It can be anything, and different people have different worldviews. Based on these worldview, in any society, values of that society are formed, and values are perception of what is good and what is bad. Based on these values, you have social systems that run the society. So how is your society run? It's run by your political system, by your capital, by your economic system, by your system of education. Society is run through these systems, and when these systems function, they produce a lot of output and products that serve as the attractions of this civilization. Okay, I have drawn two boxes here. Of course, I don't have an opportunity for a live interaction. Otherwise, I would ask this question: that why have I drawn these two boxes? So I've put worldview and values in one box, and I've put social systems and attractions in another box. Of course, there's no time to have an interaction. So the reason is that because these first two, worldview and values, are hidden. They're the hidden layer of a society. You can't see on people's face or out in the society what they believe or what are their values. But social systems and attractions are very, very tangible and you can see. Your political system, you can see it. Why? Because there's elections, there's members of parliament, there's these different things, there's a lot of political activity going on. And then the attractions are definitely many. So, one example of attraction, and I'll give many more later, are, for example, the technology that's produced by the modern world. It's a product of the modern world, and it's, believe me, it's very, very attractive. Who would disagree that these things that are produced by the modern world are not attractive? I just gave a small example of what these attractions look like. Again, right now I'm not trying to analyze these things or the modern world. That requires a separate discussion. That how do we view the modern world? Do we accept it? Do we reject it? I'm going to just very briefly point to that, but that's not my main discussion. I'm just trying to describe that even an Islamic society, for example, would function like this. It will have its own worldview, it will have its own values, it will have its own social systems, and it will have its own attractions. And again, this is not the time, otherwise we could speak for a good 1 hour about how would an Islamic society look in this framework. But that's not my discussion right now. So let's move on. Okay, so now you might wonder that, why has Sheikh spoken so many things, and how does it relate to me? It seems all theoretical things, nothing related to me, nothing relevant. No. So now let me make the connection. I don't have much time, so we start at 7:30 according to my local time. So we are 40 minutes into a discussion. Inshallah, I would speak for another 20 minutes. So we have good 1 hour discussion, and then let me see where I reach, and then maybe we can pause a bit for question and answer. So this was so let me make it what I've discussed so far. So initially I gave a brief introduction of what our course is. Then the second discussion we just finished was we tried to build a framework for understanding societies. The third step is, which I'm going to say right now, is that now the identity loss begins. Okay, what do I mean? Let me explain. Okay, so before I mention, and what I'm trying to say is that if living in today's world, I'm not careful, I'm not alert, I'm not aware, then I can be put in this situation where I can lose my identity. Okay, now let me define what is identity for you. So I've written a small thing here, a small phrase here. So identity, every person has an identity. Every community has an identity. Every society has an identity. So what is my identity? My identity is my perception of my true and real role and place in creation, in scheme of things. So basically this very fundamental question, who am I? What am I doing in this world? What's my role in the scheme of things? And I've kept it very general. Scheme of things means what's my role? What is my role for my own self? What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to live? What is my goal? Why did I come here? What should be my relationship with my family? What does my family mean to me? What does my society mean to me? So all of these things and answers to these questions, they form my identity. And if I form a true identity based on reality and facts, then I'm going to be successful. But if, God forbid, if I lose my identity and I put upon a fake identity that goes against my creation, against my divine nature, against my fitra, then you're calling for trouble. Why? Because any identity that doesn't match your creation is going to put you in big time trouble. So again, you can give many examples. So it's like a cat trying to act like a mouse. Imagine what trouble it would bring for cat. Or imagine it the other way around, a mouse trying to act like a cat. It's not going to work out. Why? Because it's against the reality. Everyone has to discover his own reality, his own identity, and be firm on that identity, and then carry forward in life. And that's what will give him a true success. So again, there's a piece of poetry from Iqbal Lahori that where he speaks about identity. It's in Farsi. I won't speak about it because my time is limited. Let me move on to the next slide. So what happens is that, look, when we live in a society is very, very powerful. We can't underestimate effect of society on an individual. It can shape our identity, a good part of our identity, without us knowing. And then sometimes, in some cases, extreme cases, and inshallah we are not part of it, but believe me, how fast the modern world is changing, and how fast is crossing all the limits. It's entering into a very crazy postmodern phenomenon where everything is okay, all the boundaries can be broken, and this process is going very fast. So in and in a worst case scenario, it can completely uproot a person from his life. He can face a complete identity loss, and the worst part of that it comes when a person loses his iman and his worldview. So you can imagine, right, that the tree is uprooted and he loses that hayat and the true life that he has, which is based on a true worldview, a life which is based on belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, belief in Islam, belief in a purpose for human life, that there is a life after death, and that's our true life. So all those elements of our Islamic worldview. Worst that can happen is that a person he loses his worldview, he loses his iman completely, and he loses his values. Those true spiritual values are lost in his life. Then what remains is uh, just a piece of flesh who just goes after either mental pleasures or physical pleasures, sensual pleasures. Uh, Maybe he's living a life of confusion. And especially for the youth, given there are so many dangers like drug addiction, different other types of addictions that are so easily accessible, their life can turn into a big time mess. It's very dangerous, especially for those young formative years. If the worldview is not strong, if the values are not built by the father, by the parents, by the family, if you don't give your children and even yourself your strong and correct worldview and values, believe me, we will be affected. But the important question is that how are we affected? So one might think that if you live in a society whereby you believe in a certain way of life, you have a certain worldview, you believe in God, you believe in Islam, you believe that there's a purpose of life, but you live in a society which, for example, denies God, either very openly or practically. And I can say this today, right, that the modern world in which we live, to a good extent, the general dominant trend is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God, our creator, has lost relevance. God is the last thing, or maybe one of the last thing that plays an important role in people's lives. So what happens is that you live in a society where the worldview differs from your worldview. Now you might wonder how this society is going to affect me. The obvious thing that comes to one's mind is that this society is going to come and tell me that, look, I don't believe in God. You believe in God. I'm more successful. Look, I have material wealth. I have economic power. I have political power. I'm the world's superpower. I'm the biggest economy in the world. So all of these are attractions of the society in which you live. I'm giving you this technology which human beings have never seen. So in your society, this society is going to come and it's going to tell you that I don't believe in God and I'm successful. You believe in God. Doesn't make any sense. So stop believing in God. So my question is, does it work like this? That when you live in a society, is this the way it affects you? The answer is definitely not. It happens in a very, very like strange manner. How does it work? You can see on the screen is that in the first step, no one is going to come you and going to challenge you at your worldview level. It rarely happens. How many times in your society you've faced people who have come directly to you and asked you this question that you believe in God and it's not correct, and let's have an academic debate about it? Rarely it happens. Why? Because worldview is something we really hold dear. It's very strong in us. And when someone's worldview is attacked, his iman is attacked, there's a backlash. You fight back. So that's not how societies affect you. No, it starts from attracting you to their lifestyle and their way of life. So let me explain how it works. So here I want to take help from some of the verses of the Quran. And again, my time is short. I'm really, really scared that, yeah, my audience shouldn't leave me. Inshallah, they wouldn't. Okay, so let me read these two verses of the Holy Quran. So what is Quran trying to say in these two verses? Let me say that first and then I'll read. Quran is telling us that if a person's actions become corrupt, then he slowly and gradually himself, he changes his worldview. He is ready to give away his iman. If problems start coming in my practical life, in order to justify my actions, I would be willing to even do away with my worldview. Okay, it's very interesting. So this verse is from Surah Al Qiyamah. Okay, this doesn't show the address. It's gone in that white. Oh, it's verse number 5 and 6. So it's very beautiful. Quran says, "Bal yuridul insanu liyafjura amama." Indeed, man desires to go on living viciously. There are some people, right, who want to just have no limits in enjoying pleasures. Halal, haram, is it oppression on others? Is it affecting others? No, it's just desires. And this can happen to a human being, that he reaches a stage where he just want to go on living viciously, cause corruption in land, oppress other people. And we know what's been going on in Palestine and the oppression and the atrocities. It has reached ceasefire, but these are the examples that shamelessly and blatantly people are bombed from the sky, innocent people. So out of around 250 people killed, 66 are children. That's a very, very big number, and the reason is why? Because the civilian areas were recklessly bombed. So Quran says that when a person reaches this state, then what does he do? He asks, ayyana yawmul qiyamah. He starts doubting the hereafter. So Quran is not saying that this person had doubt about the hereafter and therefore he's doing evil things. No, it's the other way around. Because this person started doing wrong things, he went away from the right path. This has led him to doubt his worldview, the correct worldview. So far he used to believe that, oh, there is going to be hisab and kitab, there is going to be accounting. I can't just go on oppressing others. I need to be careful of my actions. So this was, but slowly and gradually his actions started changing. He started straying away from the path, getting into some haram, getting into a bigger haram. A point comes, then he says that, who is seen hereafter? Let's enjoy the cash. So it's a very dangerous path to take. Okay, let me go to the next verse. And this is much more explicit in expressing this word. This is Surah Al-Rum, verse number 7. It says, okay, I'm not reading the Arabic, I'm just reading the translation. Then the fate of those who committed misdeeds was that they denied the signs of Allah. Very clear. So the Quran is saying that if a person keeps on doing misdeeds, Sorry, I was for a moment I lost connection. I think I'm at least I can see myself back, so I'm assuming that everyone can hear me. So everything looks fine. I'm just continuing. So the Quran is saying that look, if a person commits misdeeds, the result of that is that he starts denying signs of Allah. He says, "Oh, this sign of Allah, no, 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 I don't believe in this. Hereafter, no, 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 I don't believe in this." And not only that, they go a step further, and the Quran says, and they used to deride them. They make fun of signs of Allah. And you might have seen or heard about such people that uh, you speak about God, and it's a very unfortunate thing, at least in some parts. In so, for example, Naudhu Billah, they make fun of Jesus Christ, who's one of the greatest prophets that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent. Why? Because again, they've gone very much away from the path. So this connection is very, very important. So let me put forward in this diagram. So what happens is this, that the first thing and the first challenge and that I face and my next generation faces, and this is especially true for the generation that has been born and brought up in those societies. So most of us are migrants, right? So we migrated, at least our fathers or one generation earlier, two generation, they migrated from Eastern societies to Western societies for a variety of factors. Now you have a generation who has never seen the East, and they only lived in that modern world and seen everything very close. They are much more prone to this. Why? Because their behavior and lifestyle is affected. And when somebody's behavior and lifestyle changes, slowly and gradually his values start changing. Those things he valued before, now he no longer values. For example, spirituality. If a person's lifestyle changes, after a while, you don't feel any need for importance of spirituality and connection with Allah. Oh, everyone is enjoying their life. Let me also go with them. So it's a very dangerous path that if this domino effect starts, and the eventual and the ultimate result could be that this person ends up losing his worldview, losing his iman and his deen completely. Okay. And this is I'm close to, so I have 30 slides, so I'm close to finishing my discussion. uh, you might wonder that, but how are our actions and our lifestyle can be changed? Look, I mean, sometimes it's very mind boggling and baffling, right? So look, I'm a Muslim. I know that what are the right things to do and what are the wrong things, that Allah said, don't do this, it will take you away from the path. uh, do these things, it will bring you closer to me, you'll achieve paradise, you'll achieve my pleasure, you'll have a good life in this world. Despite mentally knowing what's right and wrong, I end up doing the wrong thing. The reason for that is that we are surrounded by too many attractions that attract us to a different way of life. And I spoke about this, right? That any society, especially those strong and dominant societies, they produce a lot of attractions. You are surrounded by their attractions and their symbols and their products, from technology, from video games, from TV to social media. And of course, right now, I'm not in a position to analyze all this. I'm not definitely trying to say that they are 100% negative. No. But what I'm just trying to say is that we need to be careful. All these things, the products and the attractions, they come with the baggage. They invite you to a certain lifestyle. If I'm not careful, if I'm not sifting and filtering what I am accessing in terms of these attractions. So internet is a big attraction, but I have a choice. I can use it for the right things, but I should be aware that there are many negative attractions on the internet, from extremely dangerous things like pornography to other things which might be slightly lower in terms of their impact. But slowly these attractions, they affect our youth. When you are surrounded by so many attractions, you are bound to slip. And slowly, behavior, lifestyle, friend circles change. Slowly, my values change. And eventually, after a period, I see that, oh, I've lost my iman. I've strayed so far. So it's a path that we need to avoid. And again, I don't have time, otherwise I'd explain. Again, the Quran is so beautiful that it speaks about this thing. So let me read this thing. This is a very beautiful verse. So it says, "Do not extend your glance towards what we have provided certain groups of them as a glitter of the life of this world." So you'll see people around you who have so much material blessing, that glitter of the world, big houses, mansions, expensive cars, billions of dollars in wealth. And again, I'm not judging those people. That's a separate story. And Quran is also not saying anything about them right now. It's just saying that you be careful. Don't fixate your eyes and say, "Oh wow, I wish I was like him." Maybe it's not a good thing to ask for. I'm getting drawn into something which might be harmful for me. Quran says, don't fixate your eyes on glitter of the world and dunya that Allah has given others. It's okay, you're passing by, you see a beautiful car, you look at it and you just pass by. But it sometimes happens, and you see people are like, "Oh wow." Again, I'm not saying it's haram. Quran is not saying it's haram, you've committed a sin. Quran is trying to say that, look, this is not real. See what Quran says. Rizqu rabbika khayrun wa abka. Yes, this is a material blessing. It's good. But this is not the real blessing. Don't be too attracted to it. Why? Because rizqu rabbika, the sustenance that your Lord has is going to provide you in this world and the hereafter, those spiritual blessings are khayrun wa abka. They are better and more lasting. This is going to finish. That is going to be everlasting. So Quran tells us that, look, don't be like attracted or drawn by these attractions, especially those negative ones, and especially those ones which invite people to haram actions, to immoral and corrupt behavior. So this is how behavior changes. So I've reached 1 hour into my discussion. What I'm going to do right now is I'm very close to finishing, so that's good news for you. You don't need to be scared. Although the announced time is 1.5 hours, but I'm very close to finishing, and that should be, should cheer up and be happy. So I'm just going to give a few examples, inshallah, with the aim of making it more tangible, because I don't want to keep this discussion as a very theoretical, abstract discussion in our minds. No, it's something that's happening to us every day today. So let me give you one example: money. So I'm going to start. So look at this third box. Okay. And I'm going to explain what's happening. So when you live in a certain society, sometimes you see that people's behavior with rich and poor people is different. And again, I'm not going to point out to any specific person or a community, but I'm sure you must have seen this around you. I have seen it in a certain community, in a certain place. I'm sure you must have seen it, that when a rich person enters the mosque, everyone respects him, everyone shows him a lot of respect, he's greeted well, he's done salam, everything. At the same time, or after a certain time, a person who's a bit poor, so let's say, like, again, I don't want to mention names, but I have seen this person who's a poor guy, his clothes are not so clean because he's like a daily wage worker. He's tired, doesn't have time to like go for those extra things. He's just managing somehow to run his basic life. When that person comes in the mosque, he doesn't have any importance. uh, Okay, I gave an example of a community, but even in the outside world, you see that when you speak about these people who have a lot of money, the billionaires and everything, people have a lot of things. Oh, wow, look, he has so much money. He's been so successful. They are like the celebrities. They are like the role models for people. People look up to them. So from Bill Gates to, I don't know, Warren Buffett to, I don't know who's the Facebook chief, or these different, the head of Google and whatever. They're rich people, they have a lot of value. But another person who's very poor, they're irrelevant. So sometimes you see in this society. Okay. What am I trying to say is that if this behavior becomes dominant in a society where people treat rich and poor differently, it slowly affects people's values. So the values start changing. What happens is that slowly, slowly people start liking this thing or telling themselves that it's good to treat rich people different than the poor people. It becomes an automatic liking in the heart. And then eventually, gradually, it can reach a state that where I actually start believing, and sometimes it's very subtle, right? I might not profess it on my tongue. If you ask me, I'll say that no, no, no. Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. The most praiseworthy or the most dear ones to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those people who have the most taqwa. I might say this on my tongue, but maybe subconsciously inside me, I've started believing that, you know what, actually, rich people are better human beings. Why? Because they can enjoy more. They have so much liberty. They can do anything they want. They have so much money. They can, I mean, it's such an amazing life. Maybe I eventually, in bottom of my heart, and believe me, these things can be very subtle, and we seek refuge in Allah that, inshallah, none of us, we have these hidden beliefs in the core of our existence that we ourselves are not aware of. That when a difficult situation and a time comes, these things come out and show us this, inshallah. But, and the last point I'm going to make here is that you might wonder that why does this happen? Where did the people learn to treat people differently, make this difference between rich and poor? The reason is we are surrounded by a capitalistic system of economy and a media that every single day attracts us to this kind of lifestyle, whereby money becomes a very key value. Money can buy you power, money can buy you political influence, money can buy you lobbying power, money can buy you all the pleasures of this world, halal, haram, unlimited. Slowly and gradually, money can become a paramount value in the society. Why? Because you're surrounded by attractions. So how many times in the movies that our children watch, people watch, this idea is reinforced that look, eventually what matters is money. If you're rich, if you're well to do, then you're good. I'm not saying, again, I just want to say this here, and generally for my entire discussion, I'm talking about dominant trends in the society. There are always exceptions. So I'm not saying every single movie or every single media output is like that. No, there are good number of exceptions. But the dominant trend, so the dominant trend, for example, in Hollywood is to, it's either based on passion and desires. So that's one theme. So romance and other kind, or it's based on violence and anger. So those, all those gunfights and action movies. So it's basically working on these two factors, that it's either your desires and shahwat, or it's your that faculty of anger. Again, I won't go into the discussion about media. I'm just giving an example. So this was one example to make it a bit more tangible that look, it's a backward process. You're surrounded by attractions. Those attractions affect your behavior. When your behavior changes, your values change. When your values change, your worldview is going to change. And the worst case scenario is that a person might completely go against the correct worldview, which, based on logical reasoning, we say that Islam's worldview is the real worldview. God really exists. God has really sent this final religion. We really have a goal to achieve. We really have things that we should be doing and shouldn't be doing. So all of this is real. Uh, Worst case, what can happen is that a person might lose this real iman and real worldview and completely fall in this trap of identity loss, and then that person just goes with the flow. There are other examples that I wanted to give, but again, my time is short. This is my last slide, so I've skipped two examples, and I'll speak for 3 minutes, and then last 20 minutes I'll keep for question and answer, your comments. Is there anything that you want to say, share? Uh, uh, then I would most like, it will be like, I'll welcome it. If there's any suggestions, any comments, any critique that you want to make. Yeah. Last slide that I want to say this is that generally in different societies that we live today, we are surrounded by many attractions. So this modern world, again, it has a history behind it, that the modern world that we see today, or the world that we see today, because today's world, no part of the world can escape this modern civilization. You can name it whatever you want, but it's a product of a 300-year-old change that started in Western Europe. So that's the history. So there's a lot to understand and speak about the modern world, its history, its roots, and what does it look like? What's its worldview? What are the values that they have? How their social systems function? What are their attractions? Here, I'm just going to make this one point that look, we are surrounded by attractions of the modern world. It's the very air you breathe, it's there everywhere. Again, I'm not in a position to critique which of these things are good and we should adopt them, which of these things are bad and harmful and we should reject them. I leave that for you to decide, and of course all of us have a good sense of moral right and wrong. And I'm not saying that everything that exists in the modern world is negative and should be rejected. No, but it's a careful choice that we need to make. There are certain good things that we adopt and we benefit from, but there are certain things that we need to be careful about. And inshallah, this practical side of the story, that how are we supposed to deal with the modern world so we stay firm in our iman, in our amal, and inshallah, in the most difficult of situations, not only we stay firm on the right path, we become a source of light and nur and spirituality for others, inshallah. And that's possible, and that practical side, inshallah, I'll speak about it in my next session. What I'm trying to say in this last slide is that look, you're surrounded by many attractions of different types, and I'm going to read the list. Sometimes the attractions could be an action. So if you go in the modern world, you see very orderly, clean, disciplined societies. There's good management of everything. It's an attraction, and not even a wrong one. But these attractions, they don't come separate, they come as a whole package. So order, discipline, management is definitely good, but it's not a single thing, it comes as a package. Personalities that a society produces are attractions. So scientists, football players, celebrities, wealthy capitalists are all role models and attractions. And it happens, right? Sometimes you ask a young person that, who's your role model? Who do you want to become like? Again, I'm not saying it's 100% good or bad, but I'm saying this is happening, that sometimes the role models that we present to our children, to our next generation, can be personalities produced by a society that represent a wrong lifestyle. So for example, lifestyle of many of these wealthy, or at least some of these wealthy capitalistic, is deeply problematic. It contains moral corruption to sometimes waste of money. And again, I can give many examples. So a wealthy capitalist in India, he builds a house right in middle of slums. So I don't know if you know what slums are. Slums are those wrecked places that these poor people live in. So right in middle of slums in Mumbai, this wealthy capitalist builds a house costing $50 million. $50 million house right in center. It doesn't go well. People are dying. They don't have food. They're hungry, and there is this ugly display of wealth. And now, if these people become role models, they're representing wrong values. They're representing wrong worldviews. But these attractions are there. Social systems can be very attractive. So I've given these different things. And again, I'm not right now in a position to critique them, that which parts of it are good, which parts of it we should take. And inshallah, tomorrow I'll speak about it. Technology, brands, buildings can be attractions. You look at these big, magnificent buildings, which are a product of this civilization and society, you feel attracted. These big buildings that are there. And a very, very important attraction that is there is media, Hollywood, TV, news. So I'm just giving you a few examples of how this process works. So I'll stop here and I'll just present conclusion of today's discussion. So conclusion is that if I'm not careful, my life and my ideology can be shaken. And I need to be alert and aware, and also have the skills to deal with these situations. And it's all definitely possible. Many people are already doing it. We just need to be well equipped, aware, keep our eyes open, and have the right strategies, the right modes of defense, and even sometimes positive change that we want to initiate in our societies. Inshallah, we'll talk in detail about the practical steps that we can take in order to deal with the situation that is there and be strong in our true identity as servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as a creation of Allah, with a divine and a very, very, very noble and a very, very big aim that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained for us. Again, there are some side questions. So some people might think, okay, again, that, oh, this is all a conspiracy theory, that it's so people go on two extremes. So some people say, oh, this is all conspiracy theory, there's nothing wrong with the modern world, everything is good, everything they do is good, there's nothing wrong, we should go where they're going. That's one extreme. The other extreme say that, oh, all of this is carefully planned and there's people sitting us to destroy us, to take our iman. Look, the answer is that it's none of these two extremes. It's neither the case that the modern world has no negative things, everything is good. No, it's not the case. We need to be careful. Nor it's the case that every single thing about our life is planned. So you must have heard that people think, oh, everything is being surveilled. There's surveillance everywhere. We have no real choice. No, it's not even the case. It's a midway between. There are things that we need to be careful about. There are things that we can benefit from if we have the right awareness. So yes, part of it may be planned, and we know this. There might be groups and people who, for their material benefit, might lead other people astray. They might bring up things that uh, uh, take other people on the wrong path. So, but many times it's a natural result of their worldview. And that's a separate discussion, that the modern world that we know today is founded on a certain worldview, which I'm just going to give you the name. It needs more discussion, and that's a ideology based on humanism. Of course, that needs a lot of explanation. But look, they have a certain worldview. They perceive human being in a certain light. Based on that, they have built their values and their social systems and their attractions, and it's just a domino effect that's getting ahead, and that is going to affect us. And inshallah, if we are careful and if we have the right mindset and the practical skills, we can definitely deal with this in successful manner. So alhamdulillah, my slides have finished. So the next question is, okay, so what do we do? And enough of analysis and problems. And I really didn't want to have a negative tone in today's thing, that, oh, you're just talking about problems, challenges, losing identity, people losing their faith. We might have seen examples around us. No, I'm not trying to be negative unnecessarily. What we all need to do is to be realistic, right? Let's not be falsely positive in the sense that we ignore the problem, and let's not also be very pessimistic and negative, that, oh, everything is wrecked, everything is in a problem. No, it's somewhere in between, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Islam tells us, that you have to be between fear and hope, khawf and raja. If there's a danger, you fear it, you become aware of it, but at the same time you have a lot of hope, and there is a lot of things that we can do as solutions. So inshallah, we'll talk about what possible solutions that we can have in the next session. There are a few slides left, but I had put in this PowerPoint, but they are for the next session, so don't worry. We stop our discussion here with loud salawat on Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. So I have 14 minutes left, which is not bad. uh, so I thank you all for your patience and time. I know listening to someone for a good 1 hour 15 minutes, it's not easy. And if you lost track in between, or you didn't find it very relevant or interesting, believe me, it's not your fault. It's definitely lack on my side, and maybe the topic itself wasn't the most interesting. Of course, I personally find it very interesting, but what is interesting for one person is not doesn't have to be interesting. Okay, so I'm looking at my chat box. So please do ask your questions. If you have any comments to make, any suggestions, any critical points that you want to mention, please do mention them. So Bismillah, now the floor is yours. We have 13 minutes, so don't worry. If you have questions, you can ask. Uh, or even just give your general comments about the session. Was it okay? Did it make sense? Is there any part that wasn't clear? It will be really helpful for me for planning my next session, and also for presenting the same material in another setting. It will Your feedback is really going to be helpful. So I'm waiting for the questions. Yeah. Of course, if there are any, I can't force you to make a question. Yeah. Okay, so the question, one of the things that has come, and others can also please keep writing if there's anything. So the question says that, can you talk more about LGBT? Yes, definitely, it's a topic that we need to discuss for a variety of reasons. One is because, as I mentioned, things have changed very fast with respect to this issue, and things are likely to become even worse, like they're going to go ahead. So, as Muslims, we need to have a good understanding and analysis of this topic. But again, it needs a bit of time, because it's not a very simple issue, it's a very complex issue. And also, in addition to being complex, it's also a slightly a sensitive issue, and it needs to be tackled very cleverly and properly. Maybe what I can do is I can suggest some material online that will give you some insight of what this issue is, what's the background behind this, who are the players who might be pushing for these kind of things, are there any genuine concerns that exist uh, that has led to these things, what are Islam's solution or views regarding this, how do we deal with it in our day-to-day lives. Definitely all of this will require a discussion, but of course I wouldn't be able to go into any of it. Maybe if we get an opportunity, we can have a session, or even there are other scholars who have worked on this topic, and maybe I can share some resources or some of the lectures that you have given. Those might be useful. So yes, they mix up with the notion of equal rights and freedom. How we can talk with kids when they ask about, yes. So definitely, it's going to be a challenge. So we need to. So I'm just going to mention one small thing, like how do we deal with this? Like how do we handle this with respect to our children? Uh, it depends on the age group, so it's not same for all the children. You'll have to see what age they are, and again, it depends also on in what age they come in contact with these kind of questions or these kind of settings. So that's something for you to judge. And yes, definitely, it is something which is concerning for us as Muslims. Definitely, we believe in our faith, and the commands that we have from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they are very important for us, because we believe that they have real implications for the dunya and the hereafter of our next generation, of ourselves. So it's a very important issue. So how do you deal with it? If you see that the kid has reached a certain age where you can explain him certain things regarding this issue, of course, what those things could be, that also needs to be explained. So things like this, even simple things that look, we as Muslims, we do not uh, it's something which is not permissible for us, not allowed for us. We are servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are supposed to obey Him. He cares for us. There must have been some negative effects and impacts of this action that Allah has forbidden. So, of course, this requires a certain maturity and understanding. So, if you have to see the age group. So, if you see that he has the right maturity or it's the right time, you'll have to speak to them and explain to them. Of course, it's a very thin line in this sense that, as a first strategy, as long as you can delay the contact of your child with these issues, then that should be our first attempt. That let him not come in contact with these kind of discussions. Maybe mildly he might hear it somewhere, but it's not become a problem in his mind. It's not something that he thinks about. So let's say you can manage it in a manner that he doesn't come in contact. So if you can delay it as much as you can, of course it depends a lot on your setting, your locality, what's happening in the school, so you'll have to judge it. But let's say a time comes that now he's coming in contact with this discussion. It's not something that you can avoid and keeping away. So without making it very sensitive and a very big issue in his mind, you just give him a logical explanation on the lines, a few things I mentioned, and then you try to keep him updated about this topic, that look, this is the reason, this is what is happening, and you teach him practical points as to how to deal with it. And the least that we want is that our children should be saved. And then again, as I mentioned, the one of the most important things that we need is we need to be alert about, we need to be sensitive, alert, aware of what's happening, so we can take inshallah the right steps. But again, as I mentioned, this thing would require a separate discussion, maybe another setting if you get a chance, or I'll share some resources inshallah in my next session so you can benefit from this. So okay, that's what to say about uh, yeah. So let me see if there's another question. Yeah, inshallah, in next session we'll talk about uh, the practical solutions and the key strategies of how we can deal with what I explained today. So this explanation was necessary to understand that what's going on. And as I mentioned, this discussion wasn't aimed at creating panic or creating fear or creating like dejection or losing hope. No, definitely not. Believe me, all of these are challenges for us that if we deal with it in the right manner, it's going to give us a spiritual boost that's uncomparable to any other thing, right? And these are our tests, right? Any society you live in, any setting, look at all of these challenging situations as your test that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put you in to check us how obedient we are. So, and everybody has these challenges, so we need to be aware of these challenges, fear to a logical extent, and also have hope in Allah's help, that Allah is there, our friends are there, the other people mu'minin to help us. So have a lot of hope and also calculated fear of what's going on around us. So inshallah, we'll talk about how we can deal with this. So yes, they also talk about God, younger kids are learning in school. I'm talking about three and up. Yes. So you'll have to see based on your situation, if at the age of three, through certain means, they're talking about God or against God, you'll have to be alert and match it with something which will be regarding God in the right manner. There are different ways of doing for different age groups. For 3 to 5, 6 year olds, it's indirect messaging through books and stories. They just get used to the idea of God. Again, all of this would need a bit of discussion on tarbiyah, on child upbringing, and also share some resources next time. Inshallah, that would be useful. And they would deal with these kind of questions, inshallah. So, I'll because my topic is not directly related to child upbringing and exactly how do you deal with these specific matters. What I'll do is in next session I'll cover the general principles that we need to know and the strategies that we need to apply. And inshallah, specific matters I'll refer you to relevant material. And inshallah, later if we get a chance, we can try and go through some of these topics. And of course, there are other scholars and ulama who have worked on these topics. I'll also mention the names and we can all benefit from their knowledge, inshallah. Okay, so thank you for your time. I have 4 minutes remaining, actually 3 minutes, and it would be good if we finish on time. It's an achievement because yeah, it's a good thing to end on time, especially for long sessions like this. So I'll stop here. I think the presenters would share. Usually, that's what I remember from previous sessions, that they would make available the audio recording and also the slides. I'm assuming, inshallah, the presenters can enlighten us on this, inshallah. So I stop here. I really thank you for your time and your patience in attending and listening to these different things. Inshallah, I'm hoping that next week I'll see all of you again and we'll go through the practical solutions, inshallah. Thank you very much. And yeah, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.